right, welcome everyone. Another week, another random. Vic's still dancing. another random natural ones. We're joined this week by Max from Legion of Myth. Glad to have you on again, Max.
Hello. You know that intro? That's too relaxing. It makes me want to wear pastel and grab a cup of coffee and be like, "Good morning, everybody."
Well, what's stopping you?
I just did. I did it for you.
Yeah, but you're not wearing pastel though.
Oh, that fair. Yeah, I have to wear black to hide the pooch, man. Jeez.
Yeah. I know
Thanks for
that
having
feeling.
me on. I really appreciate that. Yeah, who is that? That's Victor.
Yeah, that's me. You know me, Marky. You're not that old. You're not that old to start forgetting things.
Yeah, and joined as ever by Vic. Thanks for always being here, Vic. I appreciate it.
No worries. You're welcome. Even though it's 4 a.m. Fucking.
Yeah, that's why I appreciate it.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, I don't have a topic set up. I was thinking we just when Max is on, there's always something to talk about. So, yeah, I guess I have a topic we could talk about. We could jump right into it here, and it's kind of been on my mind lately, and it'll probably make some people upset. But like, what is with older gamers getting mad at younger gamers for reading rules?
Yeah. For
reading rules?
I feel like I'm on Twitter or something like that. Like that, because I'm gonna preface this by saying like I've tried to be like the opposite of you, Max, like less controversial and
how's it work? Oh wait, it is.
It's not really though, because this is the thing. Like I could sit and like I haven't quote retweeted anyone to dunk on anyone and be an ass or anything like that in a long time. It's been months because I was like, yeah, you know, I don't really think I want to do that anymore. It's not really me. But like I could still like make a tweet about a preference I like, you know, like I'm surprised it didn't happen today on my tweet with the weapon class versus AC thing.
I know I'm trying so hard to get people to bite.
But like I was expecting someone to respond and be like, oh, like serious in a serious way, like, oh, you know, like that we never use that rule and you're a bad person for using that rule and blah blah, you know, like that has happened to me before when I've talked about things that I like or my own personal preferences, and I'm only ever talking about my own personal preferences. And yeah, Crafty says Basic Expert doing his best Seinfeld. So what's with older gamers these days? Yeah, there always seems to be that guy who shows up and is like talks about how terrible that rule is, or back in my day we just ignored that, we never played that way. I don't know what's up with that. I'm kind of.
Do they ever give you a why? Because that's one of the things that I've found is a lot of people, in fact, as not tangential to this, but I watched a video today of a rather formerly popular YouTube D&D channel, and they're crapping all over Palladium. Never once said why. Because I get it. There are issues with it. Never once said why. Just said, I don't like it.
Yeah, see, I guess I don't get a why. It's just like, oh, it's dumb or it's tedious, you know. I don't know.
Yeah, that's something that bothers me too. At least, you know, people might not like my rants, but if I don't like something, I'm going to tell you why I don't like it, unless I'm just trying to get inside your head. Then I'll be like, that's dumb. Nope, you're just dumb.
Well, one thing that often happens is like you'll talk about a rule or something, and they're like, "Oh, it's not like that," and you're like, "Yeah, it is. Here it is in the book." It's like, "Well, we never played like that, and I've been playing for 40 years, so shut up, young splainer." It's like, what? It literally says here in the book that that's how it works. Like, just because you played it wrong when you were 12 and you haven't changed your opinion, like, doesn't mean that I'm wrong for like actually reading the rules. Like,
yeah, that's what makes me laugh. It feels like a lot of. I'll also say this. I think a lot of hate that a lot of grogs get is unjustified by a lot of like the 5e kids and some of it is.
We deserve some of it, and I put myself in there because I turn 50 tomorrow. So you know, I think that qualifies as grognard. So
yeah.
But you know, when I experience that sort of stuff, I'm sort of just like, oh man, this is like why. Like, don't complain about the kids, man. The kids, just ignore the kids. If they bother you, just ignore the kids. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Especially when all the kids are doing is like diving into the rules that you played when you were a kid, you know, and they're enjoying it and they're diving in and like eating this stuff up. I almost feel like it's like what Vic said, like they came to a conclusion when they're 12 and they've never changed it, and now someone has come along and discovered something like a rule or something that they never understood or didn't want to use, and they're just like, well, I have 40 years experience. And you're like, well, 40 years of not knowing that rule is there.
Yeah.
And it can lead to some nasty interactions. I try to avoid that, but I don't know.
That's so backward to me. So like if I'm arguing with somebody with regard to that, I have like the opposite take. I hate the fact that the young kids are fancy free with the rules, so to speak. Like they don't know half of them, or that rule's dumb. It gets in my way, yada yada, with no experience behind it to determine why it gets in the way. Oh, I just can't have restrictions or whatever it happens to be. I would never argue with somebody who says, well, the book says X, Y, and Z, and I'm a 14-year-old or whatever, and I'm going to play with what the book says, which is. How can you argue that? It just seems so backward to me.
Well, that's the other half of it too. Like the younger generation is definitely guilty of that. Like we've talked about this before. Like the kind of person who says like they're proud of it. I've seen it on this person on Twitter too, where they're proud of not reading their rule book, and they're like, I learn everything through streams and watching actual plays and stuff like that. And you're like, well, if you ever run into a game, don't invite me because I will not have fun and I will ruin your game. So there's definitely like that opposite end, and maybe the grog reaction is an overreaction to that. I don't know, but it's like the same thing because like I was trying to explain like timekeeping to some people, and they like I'm not even bro Asar guy, but it is in the rules. Like 1 week of actual time is equal to 1 week of it's suggested of game time, and it's in OD&D, it's in AD&D. So it's like it's in there. It's a tool that you can use, and I was trying to explain it to someone without a kayfabe like the bros often have, so in a nice way, and I still got like a vitriolic response. So I don't know. Got a super chat.
Well, it sucks because oftentimes you can't win, and I'll let you do the super chat, and then I'll make my point. Sorry.
This is Crafty Matt for $5. Thank you, Crafty. It says, because unless an old person introduced it to you, old people want you to leave their stuff alone. Get off my lawn. Yeah. Old people think they should be the one to teach.
Well, they don't, though. They don't.
Over the book?
Well, a lot of people that get mad at you, they don't teach. They're not out there on streams or on Twitter, like, delving into the rules.
Yeah, and I agree with Shane Winter here. He says, I hate that nobody ever used that rule defense. How do you know? Or do you mean you never played that way?
No. There's one exception to that. And I will fight anybody who thinks that I'm wrong on this. And that's nobody used the black books for AD&D 2nd edition. If you say you did, go set yourself on fire.
I don't play 2E. Vic's been slowly being pressured by Crossface to run a 2E game.
Yeah.
But hasn't yet done it. So I'm not familiar with the black books. What was wrong with the black books, I guess?
It's basically almost 3rd edition. It's really so some of them was at the Spells and Powers book, stopped using Vancian style magic and started using spell points. One of the books went in and split each ability score into 2 ability scores. There were nuggets, little snippets you could get out of each one. Like one of the things that I started using was I used the injury system for one of the books. It's totally optional. I don't use it all the time, but I like the idea of different injuries being so severe that like a cure light wounds can't cure this. You need something higher than that. But that's just a personal preference. But as far as, those books were ultimately horrible. There are a couple, again, the epic one wasn't so horrible because, there was just the random, right? Exactly. Come check out the Rando live stream on Friday. Show you how rando. No, but I mean, again, there were nuggets in there you could get. But as far as just books go, it completely rewrote the game. It wasn't the same game.
Yeah.
I need more of those. More things that say "Amen, Max."
Well, what I wanted to say earlier is like oftentimes you can't win either because when you talk about like 5e or like any other like modern system, like these same grognards scoff at you for like, like being too new school. And it's like, oh, you're playing like that, like woke horse shit. But then when you are like interested in like the OSR or an old school and you start delving into the room, those same people get mad at you and call you a young splainer when you actually start talking about the rules. So it's like, well, which way do you want it?
So in my experience, what I'm finding out more and more is that, and I wouldn't say this grognards, I think it's gamers as a whole. And, people can get offended if they want when I say this, but there are a lot of autistic, pedantic people out there.
Yeah.
And I say that meaningfully, that you can't get one little iota wrong otherwise, they're up in your chili over some nonsense. It's like, dude, I was generalizing or whatever. I had an example in my head, and unfortunately, being old, it flittered away. So hopefully, I remember it a little bit. But we made a video on that where it actually was a video about it's okay to be wrong when you're making a generic point. But some of these folks like, no, you said I, and it actually says the. You don't know anything about the game. Like, wow, you just went off the handle over something that didn't matter at all.
Yeah.
I think it's I think this happens in any any subculture, in any scene, that there's a niche thing there, that there's this idea of I'm me and I'm really great, I'm really awesome, I'm really great, and so therefore, because I'm so great, my preferences are objectively right. And I think there's a lot of that, like in any scene. Like I've seen it in the gun scene, the gun community, the gun owner community, where
yes,
they'll argue about like what's the best CCW weapon for like ages, and like it will get vitriolic, it will get mean,
using the wrong grain of ammunition, like it went through the target. What are you talking about?
You'll see this in fitness, in like weightlifting, bodybuilding, any of that kind of stuff. They'll argue about like, should you squat? Should you do leg press? Should incline bench? Is a Smith machine good? Like they'll argue about all that kind of stuff. And in our hobby, it's about rules or game preference or something like that. But it's always, in my opinion, a preference being, I guess, masqueraded as a, or upheld as like objective truth or gospel even, it seems.
Mm-hmm.
Did you hit that super chat?
I did. Let's see.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Hold on. Who likes basic role playing? I moved away from D&D years ago. I mean, I like the percentile system. I think it's great in like RuneQuest and Call of Cthulhu and stuff like that. So I like that. I like that system. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Well, what I was gonna say a moment ago. Sorry, I got my thought back. Is I think a lot of times people forget that they homebrew. Very few people play raw, and those who do like to let you know they do. That's fine. But like I know I homebrew. I homebrew a bunch of different things, and for example, like when Victor's wrong about having dwarf wizards, I don't care that he homebrews the game in order to have his stupid dwarven wizards in a game that shouldn't have stupid dwarven wizards. With that said, he homebrews it and he does his own thing, and that's the way he does it at his table. And sometimes, and again, it might be a bit pedantic and it might be a bit autistic, but I think those games, like you said, that subculture thing, it gets into that where maybe sometimes you just have to say, hey, I homebrew in stupid dwarven wizards.
And technically in 5e there was, so you won there.
Well, again, that's the 5e in D&D, so I don't care. But anyway, no, the point is, like, some people, like, because somebody's been arguing with me recently over the fact, like, what does it matter what I do at my table or how people express their game? And I finally came to the realization what I think the issue is. And I meant to say it on the last Friday chill stream, but I didn't. And that's this. It's because we all need a center point, a point where we have an understanding. We know that when you say Dungeons and Dragons and I say Dungeons and Dragons, we're talking about the same thing. And when you come out, and I'm just busting Vic's balls because this is a back and forth thing with us, but and he comes out with stupid dwarven wizards, that's not Dungeons and Dragons until he tells me he homebrews them in. Like, okay, so now we have to redefine that starting point. That's fine. You're allowed to do whatever you want at your table, your game, do it. But if you're talking something to me, you're telling me that you run Earth Dawn, or you tell me you're running Palladium Fantasy, or you tell me that you're running, what game am I covering right now? Coriolis. Like, if you're telling me those things, we have to have that grounded starting point, which comes from the core books.
Yeah.
I agree. I think Raw should, like Crafty has said this on the Gilded server, Raw is like the default state of the game.
Yes.
That's like the default state. Which is, like you said, it's so weird that so few people actually engage with the default state of the game, which is kind of bizarre to me because we do it with every other kind of game, which is, I guess I get it because there's a level of freedom, a perception of freedom within with there's a fly in here within with RPGs where you're kind of, the rules really seem to oftentimes encourage, depending on what edition, what game you're playing, seem to encourage freewheeling and making the game yours. But yeah, it does lead to this like communication error where like someone on the Guild server was talking about how they played in a 5e game and they left immediately, I think, because they put the game on 2d10. And you know, I have a game that uses 2d10, but
Still got to get that, by the way.
You have to do some mathematical changes to stuff because 2d10, that peak is at 11. You know, it's not like a flat 5% d20, and this person didn't account for that. So it was like, it drastically changes the way the game plays if you're playing 5e and you're not changing target numbers, let's say, or armor class, but you are still rolling 2d10 and you're going to be hitting 11 more often than not. Like you're sort of like, you've made something completely different.
See, I can actually see that as a benefit until you tell me it's 5e and those 6-hour-long combats already. Yeah. Now you just made it 8-hour-long combat. Good job.
Yeah. Why does my game suck? I don't understand. We have another super from Crafty, but I guess what are your guys' opinions on the basic role playing system?
I don't have that much experience with it, so I've never played. What do you say,
RuneQuest?
Yeah, RuneQuest and stuff like that. So
yeah, I don't have any memory. I don't even know if I played it. If I did, it was back in the 90s.
Yeah.
I like Call of Cthulhu. It uses the same percentile system.
So it's Chaosium?
Yeah. That's what their whole system is called.
Oh.
They just they don't really market it that much, but they just released, I think, a book a couple weeks ago, a month ago, that was like just the vanilla rules for the, like, you could take the basic role playing system and do your own fantasy, or like GURPS, I guess. They released.
I love the Chaosium system. It's my favorite skill based system that's out there. Even if I don't like Call of Cthulhu itself, I absolutely love Chaosium system.
Let's see. Read the fucking manual and learn the raw rules as written. We teach common grammar so we can communicate. We learn the rules as written so we know what the F we're trying to do.
Yeah.
I mean, at least read them and understand them.
Yeah. Did you do the super chat yet? Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Raw should be the starting point of any game talk. Yeah. You know, because then from there, you can branch off and be like, well, you know, I know that the rule book says dwarves can't be wizards in DX, let's say. But
it also says that fighters are veterans and not pig farmers, Max. I mean, but you know.
Nope. They're all naked with no skill and only blood.
Yeah.
But you do need that starting point to like have meaningful communication. And you know, I do think I talk about this kind of stuff too, and I don't know if this is true for you guys, but it's a more advice thing. I always try and preface anything I say with, this is what works for me, and your mileage may vary. Like if I don't, I've always said this, if I don't say that, assume that that's what I mean, you know, because I don't really care what you do at your table, but I do know what has worked for me. And I do know what has led to successful games and unsuccessful games and campaigns for me. So you can take what I'm saying with a grain of salt, try it. You might not work for you. Who knows? Maybe it will, maybe it won't, because it's all preferences at the end of the day. And I just lost a train of thought. I'm getting old now, but yeah.
I started to write down notes. So one of the things, like you talked about, I've been playing for 40 years, so I know what's up, yada yada. Well, I am going to use that as a defense for a second here. I absolutely agree with everything that's been said in terms of read the rules first, know the rules first, I even go so far as to say run it at least once with a group of people one time, so that you understand how they work and how it all fits together. I get that. But I will also say this, and this is something that some people have pushed back against me on, is I've been playing for 40 years. Believe it or not, I can read a rule system and know what's going to work and what's not going to work for me by the time I'm done reading it. Now, does that mean that I just assume like, I'm changing every rule in this book? Absolutely not. I still follow my own practice of like, well, let's run it the way the game says first, because there's some unintended consequences there. But I can read them and say, I think this is an area that's going to be a problem, or that this area is really great. So there is kind of that mix and match. But yes, read the books, read the rules, understand the game.
Yeah, well, like you said, you at least read it first, and then you make the decision that if you want to use it or not. But there's people that don't even read. They're just like, yeah, no, I don't need that. I'm just going to homebrew my own system. And it's like, I'm just going to homebrew my own system for like handling attacks. It's like, well, there's literally like, a rule for attacking like on page 2. Like, why aren't you reading that and using that? But,
I got a super
no.
chat for Vic. Oh, here we go. Vic, how are you handling mathing everything out for your 2d8 system?
I'm terrible at math and I hate math, but I don't know. I'm keeping it fairly simple, so it's not too hard. But Chat GPT helps.
Well,
like, math
are you making the game since you're using 2d8? You
Yeah.
are using base 16 math, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Max is 16. Max stat you can have is
No, I'm saying base 16, so it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, A, B, C, D, E, F.
Like Traveler.
Yeah. No, I do base everything for the most part around 16.
Hexadecimal math. That's awesome. We need more. The computer guys will be good.
The way so it's based on target numbers, and the target numbers are kind of calculated like I took it from the One Wing second edition, where it's like a number minus your ability score is your target number. So that's way basically how I'm doing it.
Okay.
So basically, you pick two backgrounds, your primary and your secondary. Your primary background, it's your target number is 20 minus your ability score. Your secondary background is 22 minus your ability score, and then your unskilled skills are 24 minus your ability score. So that kind of gives you your target numbers, and then there's like bonuses and stuff you can get through like gameplay, or like difficulty modifiers, like if you want to do like a 2,000 yard like sniper shot, that might be a +6 difficulty modifier. So even if you have like a really low target number, which the lowest you can get is like 4, with a +6 you still have to beat a 10 on a 2d8 to be able to make that shot. So even for like the best like John Wick character, it's not an easy shot to make. So
yeah, I think most designers, like if you're going to start designing your own thing, you need to use anydice.com. If you suck at math, especially, like I'm not very good at math either, but you can go to anydice.com and you can plug in whatever dice combos you're doing for your game or whatever you're trying to homebrew for something else. And then you can see like, oh, okay, well, this might work and this might not work, but then this is where it comes with reading the rules of if I do change this and then this target number or whatever this is changing, then I'm going to have to change this, and this, and this down the line, because it's going to be this butterfly effect of subsystems within the game that I'm going to have to probably fix. And you might have a situation when you're running a game where a situation comes up that you hadn't foreseen, where it gets kind of mucked up because you've changed something previously and you thought you got the domino effect figured out, but you didn't. So I think that's the benefit of it. But I guess back to Max's point of the 40-year thing, like I get that perspective of like how you can read a rule book and you kind of know reading it, like you're playing the simulations in your head because you have 40 years of doing stuff where you can be like, you can reference that, and there's a lot of experience there that is definitely true. I guess my gripe is sometimes I feel like people like shit on a rule, but they don't tell, like you said earlier, they don't tell you like why they're shitting on the rule.
And usually just find that it's personal preference.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like one of the rules I changed in Earth Dawn is normally drink if you have if you change your action, it's normally a +2 to the target number. I make it -2 steps. Now, theoretically, the math makes mine a little bit more difficult to succeed, but ultimately each step is a number on a die. It's really what it comes down to, the average you roll. But I did it because I know that when people change actions, number one, it makes them use new dice, so that's going to slow things down. They're not going to want to do that. So they're more careful about the actions. Number two, it does make it a little bit harder to hit, so they just don't inherently go, oh, you got that one over there, let me switch my attack over here. Or you know what, I was taunting this guy, but I'm going to turn around and start screaming at this one and say, it doesn't happen a lot, but it happened enough where I was like, just let me tweak it just a touch. And it actually worked out. My players liked it. So is that the right rule? No. And do I expect you to do it? No.
Yeah, it might not work at it. Like, I guess that's my thing, going back to like preferences as objective truth and gospel. Like, it works really well at your table, but maybe I run Earth Dawn and I would try that, or maybe I would try the I've never played Earth Dawn. I'm interested in trying it, but I would use the rules as written rule and find that maybe I still like that more than, maybe it's not a problem at my table. So, it's not an issue.
Yeah.
So But thank you, Black Lodge Games, for the $5.
Yeah.
Everyone check out their channel. They have a cool channel. They stream too.
Hey, Black Lodge pushed me over the edge on Friday to help us get a giveaway. Nobody won, and just so Black Lodge knows, because it was a nice size super chat, we're rolling that over into the next Friday, so your money was not wasted.
Cool.
Nice.
There you go.
I need to do a giveaway at some point.
I need to do a giveaway for my supporters, actually. I was going to give them Modern Necessities. That was what I was going to do.
Hey, give away all Vic stuff.
Yeah. Crafty says, at the Basic Expert, it's not just the old guys that get mad. I watched a video of a guy that said reaction rules are missing from 5e. I pointed them out in the comments and was viciously attacked. Well, that's because he just didn't want to be wrong. He was wrong, and then, I've been wrong in my videos, like in my Classic Traveler series. Like, I got some stuff wrong, like badly wrong, and people commented in the comments like, that's wrong, this is actually right. And I'm like, awesome, thank you, because I want to be as close to right as possible.
Have you noticed though that a lot of people, and I don't know if this is an internet thing, actually I've seen it with gamers my entire life, they don't just say, hey, you're wrong, because I don't mind, believe it or not, might surprise some folks, I don't mind being told that I'm wrong when I'm really wrong. What really gets me, and I will fight tooth and nail, even if I know I'm wrong and I know that you're right, I will not let you know that. If you come to me, Max, you retarded, this is wrong, it's on page 62, I don't care. That rule isn't there. I ripped it out of my book. It doesn't exist. Go F yourself. Like I will not play that. It's like, you don't have to be rude about telling somebody that they're wrong. That's another thing. That's like, the second you're rude, I'm going to have a field day with it no matter how wrong I am. Like, I'll make up stories about it. Like, nope, nobody ever used that rule. You're stupid for having it. Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've no one in like my Traveler videos was rude about it. There was a lot of, I think maybe Traveler people are different. I don't know, but they came in and there was a lot of like good corrections of just like, oh, it's on this page, or actually it's this, and they were helpful because I got those things wrong, because those are things that I was still kind of confused on and was still trying to wrap my head around and figure out exactly. So, I don't mind being wrong and correcting myself. But yeah, I agree. You don't have to be an asshole about it.
Kentucky Rex. Kentucky Rex just made me laugh. That was good. I liked it.
This one, or
yeah, I do feel bad. No, it's just weird because one of the things, at least when I started, when we ranted, we didn't rant at an individual person, or if we did rant at an individual person, it was somebody that was the type. Like it definitely fit a mold. We didn't do that to anybody within, like, people who would watch this or who would watch us, like. Just because you play differently, again, we bust each other's balls because it's fun. It's good natured. We enjoy it. It's like sometimes he trolled me one time. Vic over there trolled me one time. I thought he was actually angry about something. I forget which one it was, but maybe it was the Dwarven Wizard or something. No, it wasn't that. It was something else. But anyway, people can have fun, but a lot of gamers, man, it's like they have to be right. It's like working in IT. I don't know if either of you guys work in IT, but I work in IT. And one of the things I joke about with the IT guys that I work with, and I've said this for years, is every IT person thinks he's the best person in all of IT. Oh, that person doesn't know a server from his asshole. Oh, that person can't connect a network. Like, instead of bitching about it, either do it better or teach somebody. Oh, I don't have time to do that. Like, you won't find that in my office. Like, in my office, I don't play that game. It's like, no, we're gonna resolve our issues first. But gamers are like the same things. Like, you just can't be wrong. Like, there's a stigma. You were wrong one time. That means you will never be right in your entire life or something. I don't get it. I just don't get it. They just can't be wrong.
I don't know. Gamers are a contentious bunch, I guess. I don't know.
my problem is that I get drunk and then I passionately argue with stuff that I don't actually care about.
Dude, I love it. I'm telling you, I love it. It's hilarious.
So, but like on Twitter and stuff, I don't really dunk on anyone. And so, yeah, go ahead.
Crafty had a funny comment. It just says the problem is that my default state, my rules as written, is that I'm an asshole. I think
the first step in solving a problem is admitting it.
Yeah.
I don't think you're an asshole, Crafty. You're all right for a car salesman.
Yeah. Yeah. You're all right for somebody without a soul.
Oh, wow.
So far, I'm agreeing with everything Kentucky Rex is posting. Yes, I agree.
Being wrong one time poisons the well.
And then he follows that up. Yep.
And to clarify, it shouldn't poison the well. Yeah. But see, like I said, I don't mind being wrong. Like I make a lot of my videos sometimes because it helps. It forces me to like do a deep dive into rules in games that I'm serious about that I want to run, and gives me like an extra reason beyond running the game in order to do a really like page by page, cover to cover exploration of what a game is about. And so like when I get something wrong in that, like of course I want to be fixed on that, you know. So I would even like people would correct me in my traveler videos and I'd like pin their comment and like, you know, put it at the top so people could see this part in my video is incorrect. Look at this comment, you know. So I don't I think that's important. People I think are wrong and they just I don't know, it's an ego thing and they just let it they just let it bother them and they don't have to let it bother them. You know,
So I'm pretty versed at the free league system. The problem with the free league system is that each game has nuances that are different. Well, I went into this Mutant Year Zero. We just finished the entire Mutant Year Zero series: Mutant Year Zero, Mutant Mechatron, Mutant Gen Lab Alpha, and Mutant Elysium. And I went in there going, "This is gonna be a cakewalk for me, no big deal." And there were a couple of times in there where Heathen would ask me questions. What about this? And I'd be like, "Oh crap, I don't remember." I don't know. And it did make me feel dumb because I'm supposed to be coming in here like I read the book and everything's good. And I have read the book, don't get me wrong, but it's like I got so many things jumbled up. It did make me feel stupid. I'm not going to lie, but those things are necessary because if I don't get it right, somebody in chat or somebody in the comment section later will be like, Max, no, it's right there on page 62. How did you miss that? You know, okay. Well, thanks for pointing it out.
I guess that makes me think of another thing is like are rules lawyers at your table bad, you know? Are those is it just like a scale of like there's a point where they're obnoxious obviously and then there's a point where I think like a rules lawyer is actually very helpful at the table.
They can be
know? So because I want to be right. I want to make rulings because my thing when I'm running the game, when I'm a game master, DM, whatever the game system calls the referee, is I want it to be clear that it's the players versus the rules and it's not the players versus me, or that I'm not being the over generous and coddling DM, which I think is something that is more prevalent than the adversarial DM. I think most GMs want their players to succeed and they end up in the more coddling, holding their hands and making things too easy for players camp rather than like I'm going to murder you all. Are you fighting? Are you always fighting adversarial tendencies, Max?
I used to be very adversarial. I'm not adversarial anymore, but I'm certainly not coddling.
Yeah,
I'm too nice sometimes.
I'm too nice sometimes too, and so for me, like trying to stick as close to the rules is a way for me to keep that tendency in check, so that I'm not being too nice, and conversely not being too adversarial. So to me, like having a rules lawyer there, like we were playing in my AD&D game a while back, and one of my players, a buddy of mine who lives up in northern Idaho, he was like, actually, he made like a sub-op. He like tattled on himself, you know, because I had missed like a penalty that he should have had, and he like ratted on himself, and he's like, actually, it should be like a -4 because of this, and this, and it's on page whatever. And I'm like, oh, excellent, like thank you. You know, you didn't have to say that, but thank you, because now we're all, you know, we can keep trudging along and being honest. You know, the upside of rules is written is that it's honest. So I don't know. What do you guys think?
No, I agree. In my main game, one of the guys is kind of a rules lawyer, but he's for the most part a helpful one. I'll be like, so how does the spell work again? And he'll tell me. He doesn't even need to look at the book, you know, stuff like that. So like you said, there's a point where they become obnoxious, but for the most part, I think they can be very helpful if they keep their obnoxious tendencies in check.
See, I don't call them rules lawyers if they're helpful. That's just because I pretty much only use it as a derogatory term. In the AD&D 2nd edition game that I was in a couple of years ago when I was still in Germany, we had a guy that was absolutely a rules lawyer, but he was trying to break every rule in the game. He's basically trying to screw with the game master's game. One of the examples that I set while sitting there is if the game master's wrong, because I knew the rules much better than him apparently, is that I would sit there and be like, okay, actually this is what it is. But I'd say it one time, and if he said, oh, cool, thank you, okay, we moved on. And if he said, no, I'm still going to make my ruling, okay, we moved on. Like I didn't care, but I would put it out there one time. And if I noticed that he was doing something consistently, then I wouldn't keep, busting his balls about it. Because I think that sometimes, well, not sometimes, we all make mistakes. The one other caveat that I like what you said about the rules lawyer there, correcting himself. In that case, because of that honesty, I might not even apply that penalty that one time. Be like, you're in such a good position, or whatever the situation is. It's such a clear train of thought for to handle that action, and because you're honest about that, I'm not going to apply that penalty. Go ahead and make your roll.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I for sure would do that, but you get what I'm saying. Because I think especially when a character puts himself, or a player puts the character at a disadvantage, like, hey, I know you're saying that it's a -1, but really it's a -4. I like that kind of honesty, because that tells me that the character or the player understood that he put his character in a precarious situation, still wants to go forward with the action. And I want to reward people for trying to be heroic and not just playing a character sheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Kentucky Rex. Real players respect the rules and in the moment rulings and realize the GM is fallible, but has the game's best interest at heart. And that's the responsibility, I think, of a GM is have the spirit of the game and the to be fair. That's what we're there for, and to be fair over with this modern concept even too of my story, my narrative. The players are ruining it. They're mucking up my novel. Like being fair, beyond that, I think is important, and your job as a GM.
See, that's a complaint I have right there. We never had a problem with the term story until 5e came around, because I'm an AD&D second edition player. I mean, I started before them, but that was the main game. My examples, and anybody who's watched my streams knows I said this, my examples of how I want my games to fold out are Dragonlance or Lord of the Rings or whatever. I run my games like they're novels, not movies, but also not just strictly games. I want them to run like novels, but they're novels that I don't know how they're going to, like, the game determines how it's going to come to fruition. Like, I don't have it pre-planned. I just put the scenario around them. But we'd say, like, hey, the story. Yeah, I mean, that's what they called us. Actually, back then, that's what they called us. The AD&D first edition players called us dirty campaigners, because we wanted things that weren't Monster of the Week. We wanted things that would just continue on and on and on and on. And I'm not saying that the other stuff is bad. I hate the fact that I even have to say that. You should know that I'm not calling anything else bad. That's what we did. And we used the term story for that. And it was always acceptable up until the 5e crowd came and ruined that for us. So thank you, jerkwads in the 5e community.
Yeah.
Well, I think that was the fault of actual plays and stuff like that. As much as just tired and dead beaten horse as that talking point is, I mean, it's true. Crafty's pointed out, like, trying to simulate your game or make it like a Critical Role or another actual, like, well-produced actual play thing is like watching pornography and trying to bring that into your bedroom with your significant other. It's like, it's probably not going to play out like what you saw on your screen. So, real life isn't like that. And real games are generally, even the dirty campaigner campaign is still not like that. So I don't know. I think that was part of it was actual plays sort of have really sort of changed the perception of what a campaign looked like. Because look, I started in the 4E days, so like my introduction into the hobby was 4th edition, right at the start of it, and even then with 4E, which was a radical departure from, even more so than what 5e was, and 3.5 was a radical departure from what the game was. In my head, I still had the concept of, and this is how I ran 4e. It was dungeon crawling and adventuring and what's in the next room. Like, there's traps in the dungeon. Like, that's how I ran it, because I still had that old school, even as a noob, as a normie entering the hobby, that perception of what the game was still very prevalent, and the expectation. And I think the next generation after that had that shift, because they had a new thing that was influencing what the image of what a game looked like was. So
I think you can have both, though. You can have story with dungeons and traps and all that stuff. That's what I do. Like, I love having a little bit of story. I don't even mind when characters have like a little bit of background when they first start. I'm not saying that, give me like a 12 fucking page, like, squeed, but like, a little bit of flavor to your character. Like, what did they do before they, became an adventurer? That's fine. but yeah, like I don't let the story go at the cost of, like, you know, like you said, the other conventions of the game, or like the mechanics or whatever. Like you have to have like a good blend of both, I think.
The best backstory is when the character comes to you at first level and says, okay, so my character, he assassinated the prince, and now he's on the run after killing all the guards, after running out of the castle. No, your first level, you did not.
I,
You're a one hit die loser. I'm sorry, you're not that badass yet. You know,
But it's in my story.
like no, make something a little more reasonable.
Yeah. Well, my very first 5e character that I ever made, like the GM wanted us to have, like, you know, a bit of story and background. So I made my character like an older bard. He was like already like in his 50s or like early 60s. So technically he should have been higher level. Like I had him as like a folk hero, like he did all this stuff. But then I said that he just spent like 20 years being like becoming like a fat drunk in this inn, just telling his stories for like room and board. But then the owner kicked him out because his stories were getting stale and boring. So he had the adventure again. But now he was fat and old, so he was level 1 again. So, basically that was my. And he was like a complete drunk and like.
See, I read that story before. It's called Dragonlance. What's the second novel series? That's Carmen. No, you stole it.
I've never read Dragonlance.
Yeah, you're not original.
I read like the first book ages ago in Dutch. That was it. So, but yeah, like I just thought that was amusing.
That's a funny way of explaining, you know, that like, oh, I sat on my ass for 20 years and got fat and drunk, and now I don't remember stuff quite so well. I kind of it's not like riding a bike. So
yeah, and the only reason he went on adventures again is because he could get new stories, and then maybe he could find like another inn where he could get room and board for like just telling his stories and retire again and get even fatter and drunker. So yeah. So yeah,
that's funny. Crafty says, I don't think 5e gamers do not know the definition of a campaign.
Not with an average of 6 sessions.
Well, you know, that's the thing too. This is a problem within, like, I think new SR games as well, NSR games, where like a lot of those creators in that like subgenre over there talk about how, like, one of them, I don't remember his name, and it's probably best I don't remember his name, so I'm not throwing shade at a specific person. But he I'm told that he said something like, someone asked him like how many sessions he played to play test his game or something like that, and he's like, oh, it was my longest running campaign ever. It was like 8 sessions or something like that. It was like, what? It was a long campaign. I'm like,
we call that a failed campaign.
Like, how? So yeah, I do think that some of them don't understand the definition or what the expectation of a campaign is.
Yeah, it's funny you say the definition though, because another thing I've run into recently is a lot of people have different definitions of what a campaign means. I mean, we can get the dictionary definition, the colloquial definition. For me, a campaign is I'm sitting down at the table playing this character in the same setting / world, whatever you want to call it, for however long we play it. Now, some people are like, no, that could be multiple campaigns. Well, yeah, again, you could say that this story arc, or whatever you want to call it, this campaign arc is one campaign, this campaign arc is another campaign. I don't do that. I just say that, look, my Earth Dawn campaign lasted 2.5 years, but I guarantee you what they were doing at the beginning of it had nothing to do with what they were doing at the end of it. And the only reason it lasted 2.5 years is because I was in the military and people keep traveling all over the place. Yeah, I mean... Yeah, sometimes it gets weird on those definitions, but 8 sessions, that's not a campaign, that's a fail.
Yeah, I would agree. Especially if your goal is a long-term, like what you would term, like, what I guess for them, like, what is termed long-term then, I guess, too, you know. Apparently it's about a month and a half of gaming if you're playing once a week. Like a lot of people do, which to me is like, that's ridiculous. Like my current BX game is still going on. And it'll be 2 years in January this year. So, you know, and I just retweeted Rick Stump on Twitter. He was talking about how it's the 44th anniversary of his AD&D game.
Wow.
Like, that's just his first edition game. I'm like, that's amazing. Like, I want to have a long running campaign campaign setting that's like that, you know, someday. Like, that's something I would strive to do. Maybe the system will change. Maybe it'll be Castles and Crusades one time and maybe AD&D another time as we like cycle through characters and what those characters do before they reach named level or we get into domain stuff. But to have players consistently playing the same 44-year-long campaign someday, that's a dream of mine. So I think that's cool. To me, that's a campaign. It's like the ultimate campaign. But yeah,
my personal success level is 1 year. If I run a campaign for 1 year, that's successful. And I've run quite a few 1 year campaigns. I wish I could have done longer, but again, military, that's just, it is what it is, right? And since then, I was a contractor and I traveled even more as a contractor. But other people's goals might be different. Now, I think I've run every campaign much longer than a year. But that's my personal goal. And I think that's a fair goal. Like if I'm going to sit at your table and Vic or you are going to run a game like, hey, I'm going to run a campaign. My expectation is I'm giving up a year for this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Or more. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Every Saturday night from this time to this time. This time's
we did 8 hours a day. It was noon until 8 p.m. every Saturday during football season, every Sunday when football season wasn't on.
Yeah, my first campaign that I ran was like ended after like 2 years or so. So yeah,
that's a good campaign. To me, it's a good campaign.
I think my first 4E game. So I ran a couple as I was trying to get a handle on the system, and people kind of dropped in and out because I was still like a terrible DM learning how to DM. But I think my 4E game went for over a year.
Nice.
Before I started a new one. But yeah, that should be at least, I agree. That's a good like metric of success because within a year, you're going to get a handle on the system. Within an old school game, within a year, that's at least like level probably 3 or 4, maybe 4, depending on what class they are and everything and how the loot goes, I guess. But roughly probably around level 3 or 4, which is pretty good. But I feel like at that point, level 3 or 4 in an old school D&D game, the players are just starting to find their stride as far as like skills concerned. Because now I'm at a point in my BX game where I'm having they're levels 5, getting onto 6, and I'm starting to struggle with challenging them. I have to start playing the monsters smarter and throwing nastier things at them in order.
That's one of my favorite things to do. Now, there's a 5e book that I think is absolutely fantastic, and it's helped give me ideas.
The Modern Adventurer's Guide to Guns and Gear.
That one too. Modern Adventure Guide to Guns and what? Whatever he said. Guns and stuff. But no, it's the monsters know what they're doing. And one of the things I really loved about the second edition Monsters Compendiums were the write-ups for the creatures in there, because it gave ecology. It didn't really give tips and tricks, but if you read it, actually just sat there and read it, you'd get all the tips and tricks. And it helped you use monsters more intelligently than just sticking them in a room. We did some videos when we originally started RPG Digest on how to use certain creatures. Apparently people didn't like those videos, but no, I like the idea of that. My problem point comes around a level between level 12 and level 14. And it isn't that I can't do it. That's what I always have to stress to people, because people put in chat, oh, Max can't run high level campaigns. I have run high level campaigns. I just don't like it. It's work.
I don't like it either. It gets to a level of power, and to me, it doesn't really matter what edition it is, but it gets to a level of power where it's not fun for me to run. It doesn't suit my tastes of what I want the campaign setting to be. Yeah. So for me, it's like you start getting to that higher level, and like you should probably start considering, in my opinion, in my games, domain play stuff. You should start thinking about building a stronghold. You should start thinking about acquiring hirelings, and your characters might become like an NPC in another game that I'm running, with another group of people with lower level characters. Or you can still run that PC in the background, but like, let's roll up some lower level characters again and go through the process again, because it just gets to that weird, like, what do I don't enjoy it. Like, what do I do with you guys? I don't enjoy it.
I mean, I can do it. I love handling like the outer planes, and no, I don't believe in Planescape. That's nonsense. Low level characters do not go to the outer planes. I can use some powerful creatures. The thing is where the problem comes in for me. And some people are like, that's not a problem. That's just a feature. Well, to me, it's a problem, because I like to challenge the players. And what ends up happening invariably is I forget one item that somebody had that pulls out, like, just owns everything. Or I think that they had something, but forgot that he sold it, 16 sessions ago or something. You see what I'm saying? I'm trying to put this together. Normally, when I put something together, I do a rough outline of like what I want to have happen. I do have like 3 to 5 creatures in there for wandering mobs, for the random D20 roll. That's only going to be one of these 3 to 5 creatures, but that's because I'm prepared for them then, and I can have them ready to the game, and I don't have to spend hours and hours and hours, preparing. If I'm doing a high level game, I have to sit down and say, okay, what are the different avenues these characters can do while doing this? They can do this, they can do this. And 2 hours later, I'm still figuring out how they're going to do this so that I can make sure they're challenged at every step. I just don't enjoy that. I don't want to spend that much time, especially when the more I think about it, because I'm going to be on a live stream on Wednesday where when you talk about how to prepare for an adventure. So I've been thinking about this for a couple weeks. I am very fly by the seat of my pants. I didn't even realize that. I thought I prepared way more than I did. No, I usually come in there with just a few outlines, a few notes, a couple NPCs, and then characters take it wherever they take it, and I have to be ready for that. So I'm not prepared. I don't come in with all this preparation.
That's how I run. That's how I run my games too. Is I do a seat of the pants, almost zero prep game. When I start a campaign, it's like, here's a campaign map. You start here. This is the city you're in. What do you guys want to do? Where do you want to go? Oh, what's in the town we're starting in? Oh, this, and this, and I'll like make stuff up on the fly, or wonderful random tables in various games. And just because I don't like prep. I hate it. I don't want my games to feel like work.
Right.
Yeah, I'm there. I do this for fun. So like trying to plan this grand epic story that honestly, let's be honest, this is 90% of it's not going to get used and it's going to get thrown out. So why bother? So just make it up, and the players are going to be engaged no matter what. I guarantee. My advice out there for people is like, your players are happy to be there, and if they're going to have fun, they're going. You might think that a session, because this happened to me. I thought like a session bombed, and then later they're like, "No, that was great. That was so much fun. That was one of the best sessions ever." And you're like, "Really?" Like,
yeah,
I made it up as we went along, and I thought it was terrible. So.
And I don't really do prep either. My prep is like a bottle of scotch usually. Maybe like some battle maps or something that like I think look cool. But like I've mentioned this before, but even when I run modules, I don't read them beforehand. I read the modules as I run them. So like I don't even know what's happening. I'm just as surprised as the players are usually. So, and it seems to work well. So yeah.
Crafty says it's always awesome when players roll up new characters and eventually run into the old party.
Yeah.
Kentucky Rex says retire them at level 10 is never a bad idea.
Yeah.
I mean, OD&D original 3 LBBs only went to like level 10 or 12. I think the Wizard went a little higher if I remember correctly. Went to like 12 or 13, 14 maybe. But it wasn't until Greyhawk where they expanded the levels to like much higher levels. And Hyperborea only goes to level 12, which I think is a good level cap. I agree. I think that's a good level cap too. And Hyperborea is on the Humble Bundle right now. So
yes, it is.
Everyone should go check that out.
And if you want to learn more about it, we got some videos about. We did a deep dive into 3rd edition this year and 2nd edition like 2 years ago. So
awesome. Yeah. So check.
I already have
I had a plug.
No, that's fine.
I'm not as good as pundit with that though.
I'm not as good at that either. I can only talk about myself so much.
But I prefer lower to mid levels myself, and some people call that modcore, but like I don't really agree with that because I think like a level 3 or 4 or like maybe 6 like fighter, like that's like the kind of badass that I prefer, like even like reading in books or seeing in movies, like a really like skilled knight or something. But when it gets to like demigod levels, like I kind of like lose interest. Like even like when you watch like an old Hercules movie or whatever, like they're most fun when he's like getting challenged, when he actually has to fight something that can put up a fight, not when he's just like
Well, that's just the art of good storytelling anyway. I was watching Futurama because I've been watching a lot of that recently, and Fry makes this little comic book about how he's just nothing can hurt him, everything saves the day, and Leela's like, there's nothing interesting about that. There's no challenge, like.
Yeah, and that I think that's been that's a problem with the coddling DM, but that was always my problem in the past with, especially with 5e. It gets so hard. 5e was one of those ones where, like, I like Brancolonia, how it's like what is it, like level 6, I think?
6, yeah, and then you get little perks.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, this is great. If I were to run
Yeah.
5e again, that's what it would be. It'd be Brancolonia,
Yeah.
because screw anything beyond that. Wayne says God level play is boring. When you can overcome everything easily, why bother?
Yep.
Yeah, it just becomes, to me, I unlike Max, I'll say like I don't feel like I have the skills to run a high level game like that, where the party is still adventuring. I could run a high level game where they're not NPCs, but they're doing domain stuff. They're building a stronghold. Maybe we get into some mass combat rules, and they're leading armies and stuff like that. I can do that because that's still like within my wheelhouse of a sandbox game that's player driven, and the player is like, from my stronghold, I want to rally my troops and attack my neighbor over here. Like, sure, I can do that easy, no problem, and still feel like a challenge for you, because I can hurt your stronghold now, and hurting your stronghold, that's a way of giving you stakes, of hurting you and giving you stakes.
Yeah,
that's why I love Forbidden Lands so much, because it starts you off with that.
Oh, that's cool. But when they're copping through planes and different planes of reality, like I'm not able to do something like a Michael Moorcock novel, like I feel like that's what that is. And I just can't do it. Like it's just not in my wheelhouse to do like the Sword trilogy as a campaign, where we're plopping through all the planes of existence and all these material planes, and the main character has these amazing magic items that can like summon ghouls and see through the other planes. Like that's just too much power, and I don't feel like keeping that in check as a ref. So.
And that's exactly what it is. It's keeping it in check. It's the work. Again, I've done it. I have done it. I can do it. But I've always found that when I'm doing it, I'm having much, much less fun. Mm-hmm. And Critical as the game master, I've got to have fun too. So.
Critical Dom is evil. He says, when the characters get too powerful, I like to focus on psychologically damaging the players.
The player. I like that.
Well, people in the chat are talking about like like how you can still challenge like higher level characters, and sure you can, but I just don't get as immersed in the kind of challenges that you require. Like I want like the bad guy to be like some scary barbarian warlord, maybe like a Death Knight or something at most. I don't want to have the players to like fight like a giant astral dragon, like the Dragon Ball Z characters or some shit. Like I used to watch Supernatural, the TV show. I loved it when they were just like hunting werewolves and vampires and like ghouls and zombies and stuff like that.
Leviathan.
Yeah, but then like in later seasons, all of a sudden they're like dealing with God's sister and like all this bullshit, and I just stepped out. Like it just became like uninteresting to me. So, and I feel the same way with like tabletop games. Like I like my challenges to be a bit more grounded. So.
Again, it goes into the work involved. There's plenty of creatures out there. You can do your own mass combat. You can do all these things that will challenge the character. But instead of just, I'm oversimplifying, but instead of just saying you come across an X or, a dragon's flying overhead, I'm using something that's a little high powered, or, oh, look, there are a couple of specters running around. Maybe I'll drain a couple levels from you. That'll even things out again, right? Whatever. Instead of just having them come across you actually, if you're going to do it well and don't either want to completely waste the characters, or have the characters completely waste the NPCs, you've got to plan it better. That's just the way high level stuff works. I think it's intentional. That's the way it should work. I have no issues with that. I just don't find it as fun. If push comes to shove, my player's like, no, we want to keep going. We're going to do this. I'll do it up until I just literally stop having fun. But just know that around 12, between levels 12 and 14 of AD&D second edition, I'm like, Right.
It's crazy, like with Rule Cyclopedia going up to level 36,
Oh.
Which there's something to like Rule Cyclopedia in the Star setting, where the gods were once mortals that ascended to godhood, which is also very Michael Moorcock-ish,
It's funny you say Michael Moorcock, because Stormbringer is the only Chaosium game I've actually ever played.
Well, I've never played that game. I'm aware of it, but I've never played it. But I've been reading the Sword trilogy a lot lately, so that's why it's on my mind.
But I think so good.
Well, I'll say like just going to level 36, like it kind of fits that tone of going from a mortal to a god. And then someone was saying like, just, things are too easy as a god, so get reincarnated back as like a human and start over again.
Yeah. But I think keeping it a little bit lower level also leans more into the pulp roots of D&D, because like how many how many pulpy novels are the characters like gods and stuff, or like they're like fighting gods and shit. Like no, like in the Conan movie, like Tulsa Doom, like in modern D&D terms, he would be what, like maybe like a level 2 like warlock, like at most, like something like that. Like if you look at his power set in the movie, he can like make a snake into an arrow. And he can like influence people. Ooh! But like in the context of the movie, he's fucking scary. Like Conan actually has to like struggle to like defeat this motherfucker. So yeah, like
What do you say to people like Joe from Biggest Geekers or Shadow and Son, who they don't want to play the low level game? Like, that's boring. I've done it 100 times. I don't care to do it again. Get me to those high levels. I mean, what do you say to people like that? And I'm not, again, not that they're right and you're wrong, or you're right and they're wrong, but just what do you say when people are like, I just can't deal with that low level stuff anymore?
That's fine. Like if that's their preference, like I would probably not be the right GM for them, because I don't really like that, and I don't have much experience with it either. So I probably wouldn't be able to give them the experience that they want properly. But like more power to them. If that's what they want to do, that's what they want to do. So.
Yeah, I mean, like I said earlier, I don't really care what you do at your table. You do you. But it's just not my personal like wheelhouse, not my taste. I like seeing the players. I've really enjoyed in my BX game watching my players go from level 1, where they fought a group of bandits and got their asses kicked and got robbed of everything, to where they are now, where they're fighting 2 trolls at once.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, if they ran into that same group of bandits again, like they'd smoke them,
Mm-hmm.
And so I just think that's cool. Like it's been really cool to see
that reminiscing. Bro, remember when this thing would have whooped us?
Yeah, they do that. They do that.
Yep.
They ran across a group of like 14 goblins or orcs in a random encounter as they were traveling back from the dungeon to town to get their gold back to town. And it was funny because they even mentioned like, man, if this was like 2 levels ago, this would be a problem, because they have a magic user and he's just like fireball, boom, like incinerates like half of the orcs, and morale checks. Some of them flee, and some of them are staying and fight. But it was like a cakewalk, and it was funny because they're just like, man, if this was like 2 or 3 levels ago, this would have been a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But now this is not. And it's, for me as a DM, it's cool. It's cool to see that growth, to go from they try to take on 9 bandits. It's level 1 BX characters, a group of 3 of them. That was what my party started with at the time. And so
wait, just 3 characters?
Just 3 characters.
Oh, wow.
And so they quickly realized they were outmatched, and the bandits were like, we don't want to kill you, we just want all of your things. Give me. And they're like, great, now we got to go back to town and like, butt naked and figure this stuff out. So they eventually did go back and find revenge on that bandit hideout and murdered them all. But that took a couple levels for them to get to that point where they could do that. And that made it more rewarding too. They got robbed by this group of bandits, and then they were low level. They got a few levels from taking on stuff more appropriate and not being idiots like they were in that first encounter. And they went back and annihilated those guys. So that's cool to see. Feels very pulpy to me. It's like a background generator. The background was played out right then and there. They came to town. They were robbed, and now they're out getting revenge against these bandits. Like, perfect. OSR. It's a background generator right there.
Mm-hmm.
So
But them fighting trolls, like, it's still just trolls. Like, they're not like fighting like, really scary stuff. Well, I mean, trolls are scary, but you know what I mean.
To the average farmer or merchant that's trying to
exactly.
That troll is pretty scary. So the fact that you can fight it shows a level of power.
Yeah, well, an orc is only like what, one HD in old school, like 2 HD or something like that. But like,
or something,
yeah, but like against like a level 0 farmer, like orcs are terrifying. But it's like, in Lord of the Rings, like Aragorn, he's like, what, 80, 90? He's like built like Conan, like, at least in the books, not in the movie so much. But, he's like this ultra experienced, like ranger, fighter, like warrior. But like when he's fighting like the Uruk-hai, it's still exciting. Like there's still like some threat and danger involved. He's not just like, mowing through them like it's nothing. So
that's one of the things I really do enjoy games that no matter what your level is, I don't care if it's a skill-based game or level-based game, whatever your power level is, that there is still a chance that that you could die. I mean, using Earth Dawn as the example again, it's a high fantasy setting, so this probably isn't the best example, but because it has exploding dice, just as an example, there's always a chance that I can roll well enough that you die, no matter what your level is. Low possibility, but and there are better games out there for the example of that. But I absolutely like that. That sure, you're more powerful, and you are going to win 9 out of 10 times, or maybe even more than that. But you might not come out completely unscathed. In D&D, it's just a few hit points. Like, I'll heal that, rub a little dirt on it. All right, I'm feeling better. Give me, okay, I'm healed up. Let's go. It kind of takes some of the mystery out, so to speak.
Mr. Max says this about higher level stuff. I think for some people, fighting a new monster is exciting. They want to go through the whole monster manual and have killed one of each. For me, that's boring. And I kind of see that. They kind of want that hunter's trophy wall of like, I killed one of those and I killed one of those. I guess I get that. It's not appealing to me, but I get it.
I can go either way. I absolutely love. I like tactical combat, and I don't mean map board stuff. I prefer still theater of the mind, but I mean thinking combat, where it's like it's not just I roll die, I attack, oh it attacks, I attack, it attacks. No, I'm talking using tactics, getting an advantage, getting using abilities. Again, I got to be careful of this because then it turns into like third edition. But using abilities in interesting ways. How about that? And again, this is why I go back to Forbidden Lands, because Forbidden Lands, if you're not playing as a team, you're done. And it has a death spiral.
Mr. Max here says the power curve in D&D is way too big, and he says it's too steep. And I think it depends. So if you're playing like OD&D, maybe supplementing with Greyhawk, or maybe you're using Chainmail as your resolution system, I think that the power curve is there, but and maybe this leads into a different topic, but I think the lack of skills makes it lean on player skill. So yes, your character can like hit stuff better, but like as a fighter, that's about all you get. It's still up to you to want to flip the table and use it as cover as the orc arrows are flying at you. It's up to you to remember to spike the door so that the ogre can't. It's gonna be slowed down as you're trying to run away from it. So I think the power curve is made worse once skills were introduced into D&D, and then it became a real problem. I think it's less of a problem in the more pure older editions, in my opinion. It's just my preference. I
don't fully agree that skills are at fault. I think more like the HP bloat and all that stuff, and like the way that ability scores can go way higher in like say 5th edition, and they also have more of an impact on the game than in older editions. So I think skills are fine. Like in 5e, skills are basically just the siege engine, but with like every modifier has like a name.
Modifiers are definitely a big part of that power curve problem, but I don't know. I still think the lack of skills forces it to be less of a. And I like skill-based games. I guess I'm just of the mind that like skills in a level in a hard leveling game like D&D, they're hard to mix together and do well.
Yes, I think. And that's my problem with 3rd edition D&D specifically, is that it doesn't know if it wants to be a class-based game or a skill-based game, and it fails to me at both. I know a lot of people find it fun and popular, whatever. It's just a computer game in a book form. It fails. But the one thing that I'll kind of take exception, and no, I won't say that I differ a little bit on you with you on this one, is while I do like the basic class, or the class without the skills, even before non-weapon proficiencies, the only caveat that I have with that is I'm one of those people. Look, again, as a dirty campaigner, I don't like the idea of metagaming. So there are some things that players would come up with that, sorry, your character wouldn't know this. It's, this is the Middle Ages, and you're coming out with some 20th century nonsense here. It's hard to curb things like that. Now, should you? That's up to you. I'm not saying whether you should curb it or not, but it's hard to curb that when, look, I don't have a skill list. I can only go with what I know. Well, you're a knight. You wouldn't know about some of this other stuff. You know knightly things. You know about domains. And you know about lands. And you know about heraldry. And you know about putting your armor on right. And you know about beating up some serfs. But you don't necessarily know about seafaring. Just because you personally go yachting every weekend. Yeah. And it becomes a little bit of a problem. Now I'm exaggerating, but you get what I'm saying. Like I did think that could be a little bit of a problem, but I prefer that problem wholeheartedly to, I only have a +2, so I can't do it. It's not the +12 that I need for everything else. So I can't do it. I only have a bonus. I'm only better than the average person, but I can't do it.
Well, that's why these days I prefer over like specific skills. I kind of prefer background systems. Yeah. So then, like, if your background is like you're a landed knight, then the GM can be like, yeah, no, you don't have any seafaring skills because that doesn't include your background.
Sure.
So yeah.
Yeah, that's how. That's one thing in Scarlet Heroes that when I saw when I saw that in there, I'm like, that's a really brilliant, interesting thing.
Yeah.
Of way of applying skills to a level-based game. It's like it's in your background. Like like the one I always think of in that is clerics have, because you can roll for your skills if you want to, or you can make up your own. But one of them was like charlatan. So it's like, I was a charlatan. I was a scummy charlatan before I became a cleric and was saved by the church. So, but I still have that like, schmoozing ability that a charlatan would have. Mm-hmm. And, that kind of can come in handy with my clerical duties of preaching or spreading the news of my God or whatever. So
yeah, absolutely.
I like that kind of thing. It fleshes out the character a little more than like, I don't have, survival skill. I mean, my wisdom's pretty high, but I don't have the survival skill, so I'm just not going to try. Does anyone else want to try? Like, I don't know, just try it, roll it, see what happens. I don't know, like,
yeah.
Don't play the character sheet. Play the character.
Exactly. Yeah, 100% agree. Yep.
So Mr. Max says here the power curve is made much worse when feats are introduced. I do think that feats are a bigger problem than skills as far as like the power creep goes, especially in like 5e and like 3.5 and stuff like that, because that's just some ridiculous ones. Like in my opinion, feats should be like small perks that give you just like minor benefits, but some of them are just stupid. Like there's like feats that basically let you like ignore almost every like level of cover. So I ran into this because one of my players like got that, and he was like playing like a ranged character. So I would be like, oh well, the bandit like runs into the woods. So there's a giant tree between you and him. So like, oh, tough luck, you can shoot him. And then he's like, well, but I've got this feat that lets me ignore the cover. And I just have to fucking allow it because he has the feat, even though in my mind it doesn't make sense for the scene, and it just like completely takes me out of it. It's like what, like you're playing like fucking that movie Wanted, where your bullet just curves around the tree. Like what's happening here? So, but
sorry, Victor. I want to address that Adam Pender comment in a bit, if you're okay with that.
Sorry, which one? Is it this one
here?
The
non-weapon proficiency way. Okay. But I want to wait for Victor. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh no, I'm done.
So here's a big mistake. Now, I know they technically started in first edition, but for second edition, and one of the mistakes, and I've gotten into quite a few heated arguments over this one, where people want to parse every word that's written in the player's handbook. Non-weapon proficiencies are actually a very great tool. A fighter starts off with 3 non-weapon proficiencies. Do you really think that a human being knows only 3 things in his entire life? Now, I'm not yelling, by the way, I'm not yelling at Adam. This is for the people out there like, no, he knows more. Non-weapon proficiencies are supposed to be things. Let's use fire building as an example. You don't roll the fire building non-weapon proficiency when you're setting up camp in the middle of the night, doing your normal stuff. It just works, okay? Fire building is for when there's a blizzard, you can't find the right materials, and you're trying to rub 2 stones together to get it to go. Well, that's when you roll fire building. And people misunderstand that and treat them like skills because the book does say skill in there. They treat them just like, oh, generic skills. No, non-weapon proficiencies. Look at the riding land base. It's a perfect example one also. Right, anybody can ride a horse. It's a freaking Middle Ages. But if you want a side saddle while shooting a bow, you're gonna have to have the riding land-based non-weapon proficiency. There's nothing wrong with them if people stop using them as skills and have people make checks with them constantly. Like, oh, well, in order for you to look at the Big Dipper, you have to make an astrology check. Why? I'm just looking at the stars. Well, or astronomy. Sorry, not astrology. Well, you don't know what the stars are. No, this is to determine that there's something weird going on. Like I saw a meteor shower instead, or a planet's coming in conjunction because the gods do funny things at Mercury retrograde nonsense. It's not supposed to be for every little thing. And that's where what people get wrong about non-weapon proficiencies. Non-weapon proficiencies are perfectly fine. Adam is right. They're perfectly fine, but people use them like skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a reasonable. Your example of the fire, I think, was a reasonable example of like, yeah, you're not rolling it like every time you say we're breaking for camp. Oh, I want to roll my fire proficiency. Yeah, that would get tedious and obnoxious. But when there's a real chance of failure is when you want to. That's when you should throw any dice. Is when there's a real chance of failure. That's why you're doing it for attack rolls. That's why you're doing it for reaction rolls. That's why you're doing it for saving throws. That's why you're doing these things, because there's a chance of failure and there's consequences for those failures. Yep. When it's freezing and you're rubbing two rocks together to try and make a spark to start a fire, that means you're trying to do that because you guys might freeze to death. Yeah,
it's like raining. There's like winds. You're like starving. Like
that's why you make that roll.
Now, I like the idea of non-weapon proficiencies to add a little quote-unquote background to your character. I think it was a good system for the time, except for, and I myself was guilty of this in the 90s, or at least the beginning of the 90s. I used them wrong. I used them like skills as well until somebody educated me.
What's up, Rodrigo? He says, sorry for not super chatting since I'm broke. It's all good, dude. You don't have to super chat. But I'd love to know what you guys think about TRPGs that try to be like a video game and disregard realism. I'm having trouble with mine. Are you making a game? Or are you playing a game that's similar, I guess? Or what is, I guess, what, a little more detail, I guess, on what your personal situation is. For me, I don't really like. If I want to play a video game, I'll play a video game. I want to play a video game at the table. That's my simple take of that.
I don't really mind it as long as the game is upfront of what it's trying to do. If a tabletop game is upfront about the fact that it's like trying to mimic like a JRPG or something, then go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to me, third edition is a computer game. I mean, that and it's the edition I hate by far the most. I don't like Pathfinder. I don't like third edition. And I've said this a lot. I'll say it again. This is not meant to be derogatory. This is God's honest truth. I literally don't understand people who do like them. I've had people explain like, oh, it does this, it does that. Everything that those people say that they like is exactly what I abhor in a role-playing game. Sounds great for a board game or a computer game, but it has no place belonging in a tabletop RPG.
I like them for like the more tactical combat aspects. Like I like those kinds of like a little bit more crunchy games where like you can just have like a cool battle board and you're moving around your tokens. And
I'd say play Warhammer or BattleTech.
Yeah, well, it's fine, but yeah, that's just like a different type of flavor. But oftentimes I also prefer other types of games. I prefer more cinematic or role playing like oriented games. So it just
a lot of people do. I just don't understand it. So.
That's because I'm trying to make a TTRPG that feels like JRPGs. That's exactly it, Vic. So
yeah, but if you're upfront about it, and if that's how you market your game, like that's awesome. Like that sounds cool. I love JRPGs, so I would definitely play a tabletop game like that.
It's definitely a lot of people that do, and I don't even know if the games that are out there actually. I mean, they look like JRPGs, but I don't know if they play like JRPGs. Again, probably too tactical for my taste because I want to do more of the role playing. But JRPGs have that tactical combat built into it, or at least powers combat, however you want to look at it. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, So if you're building a system from the ground up, my advice is just you got to tinker around with it. Sometimes if you're building your own game, from the ground up, you have to sort of step away from it sometimes and kind of neglect it for a couple weeks, however long it takes. And then something will, and then I think Vic can attest to this, and maybe Max can too. He's writing the game as well, I think. I think you're still writing your game, right?
Yeah, I was actually doing some writing today.
Yeah. You know, you kind of step away from it from a bit, and then all of a sudden, for some reason, some point in the future, you're like, aha, you know, I know what the solution is. So,
Yeah.
you know, maybe play some JRPGs. I don't know.
Yeah,
maybe that's what you need to do. Get some inspiration, some more inspiration.
The problem that I've been having over the last couple of years of writing is we've been doing a lot of Palladium, and I've been looking at Free League, and I've been bouncing back and forth between the style of game I want to do. Palladium being, we'll say, more crunchy, for lack of a better term, and Free League being more rules light. So I'll start working on this, and I'll go back to work on. I'm kind of making like 3 games at one time, which is stupid, but you know, I have to go where my brain will let me write, and if I just force it, I've ruined more games that I've tried to write by forcing it.
I love playing lots of different types of games, and that also reflects on what I do, like as a creator. So I write different types of games. I did the 5e one. I did OSE stuff. My 2D8 system is very like way more cinematic. It's more like Savage Worlds and stuff like that. So like I don't really have anything against particular play styles, because like maybe tomorrow I'll be playing like a 3.5 game, and I'm getting like really into like, you know, that kind of granular combat, like tactical stuff. And then the day after I'm playing like a theater of the mind, like OSE game. And then the day after I'm playing like Savage Worlds, and I'm doing like cinematic, like, you know, John Woo stuff. Like who knows? So it's all good.
Patty has good advice here. Always play test your stuff, and even send it out to give it to a friend and who's maybe willing to run the game for a group of strangers who can say, "I'm going to test my buddy's game." Anyone interested in doing it? Who are people you don't know, who aren't going to just be nice to you because they know you and they're like, "Oh, your game's great, buddy. Good job." Let other people play it. That's what I did with Cowpunchers. I made a video asking viewers like, you know, or if you're interested in running this game, like do it. And so a bunch of people ran the game for people that like I don't even know, and they don't know me. They just knew they were going to go play a cowboy game, and I got really good, honest feedback about stuff. So you know, I think
play testing's overrated.
Yeah, I mean, ask second edition AD&D.
Yeah.
And Per here says, first timer here. This is fun. What systems do you believe are best for role-playing challenges like those discussed? Are you talking about like starting the fire or something like that, or just the general challenges we've been talking about? I mean, they're all going to do it, in my opinion. They're just going to attack it from a different angle. We talked about the Chaosium BRP system, where it's percentile and it's skill-based, but it's not level-based. So you're trying to do something. You roll a percentile dice. You're trying to roll under it, under your score. You know, that will solve a lot of problems there if you don't mind rolling lots of dice. I think it's a fun system. But then something like OD&D, you know, it's a little more of a negotiation, in my opinion, of what's going on between the player and the DM. You know, maybe the thief wants to listen at the door. Well, this would be the Greyhawk supplement because OD&D doesn't have a thief originally, but maybe the thief describes in vivid detail and says, "I want to take a full 10-minute turn to try and really inspect this door and listen at it and everything. And I'm going to describe for you exactly what's going on." I might like either give a bonus to the roll of his percentile skills, or I might just say, well, you know, good role playing. The consequence for that is going to be because it's going to take a long time, I'm going to roll for a random encounter to see if one comes up. But sure, like whatever you wanted to have happen, I feel like you explained it well enough to where like you can hear on the other side of the door, or open it, or whatever. You know, that's just my personal take on how I run my games. So there's a lot of in old school D&D, in my opinion, a lot of that verbal back and forth about what's happening, and you're kind of negotiating. DM James had said, and I like this idea. You're negotiating with the GM, and you're trying to avoid a roll. The roll happens when that negotiation fails and breaks down. You're like, all right, we got to roll to figure out what's happening. He's kind of, a while back he explained it that way, and I thought, oh, that's an interesting way of thinking about like these old systems that don't have skills in them. So
yeah,
See, I want you to just keep telling me. This is one of the things where, again, I hope this isn't a verboten term here, but where I somewhat agree with Shauner, where it's like, tell me what you're doing and just continue telling me what your character is doing. Again, I do first person, all this stuff, because I want you to headspace your character, but just tell me what you're doing. And at the point where I determine that either your round's over, your turn's over, your time's over, whatever, or you need a roll, I will interject in there and say, okay, you need to roll for your what is it called in D&D? I've already forgotten. Listen roll. I forget what it's called now. But
hear noises, I think.
Yeah, hear noise. There you go. Yeah, hear noise. Like it's been a while, man. But something like that. Obviously, attack rolls are a little different. I know you're attacking, but just tell me what you're doing, and then I will determine when the roll happens. Maybe I just say that it hits because it just makes sense. Dude's not aware. He's staring up at the clouds. You're walking up behind him, and you're swinging a hammer at him. You're not going to miss. But other times, he's standing prepared. Now you got to do all the attack rolls. But just tell me what you're doing, and then I will determine when your round's over, when you make a roll. That's my preference.
Yeah.
Crafty says, the basic expert, that is the raw way that searching is supposed to work in 5e, but no one uses it. It's even in the PHB that if you do not describe where you are looking, you'll never find the item.
Yep.
Yeah, when WotC released the VTT teaser and they had those influencers come and play, and one of the guy, there was the guy and the girl, and the guy's like, "Can I roll a perception check to see what?" And it's like, "No, shut up, right? Stop."
Yeah,
that's terrible. That's bad playing. You're a bad player. You're a bad player, and you should feel bad.
I'm gonna step into a room. First thing I'm gonna do is make a perception check. Then the next thing I'm gonna do is make a spot check. Then the next thing I'm gonna do is make an investigation check. So did I find everything in the room?
Yeah.
Do I know all the secrets? Do I know the secret? Is there a secret door in here? Is there a treasure? Did I find the trap? It's like, no. You just try to describe what your character's doing, please.
Yeah. I agree.
Let's see. They're talking about basic fantasy in chat now. I recommend basic fantasy. I haven't looked at 4th edition, but I hear good things about it. One change I know in 4th edition basic fantasy that I don't like is they changed the weight of gold to a pound, I think, from 10 pounds to 20 pounds per 1 pound of weight, which I think is, I don't know why that decision was made. Makes things easier for the players, and it's just an awkward number to like the 10 to 1 was just like an easy way of figuring out how much weight in gold you had. Just move the decimal over.
Yeah.
But they changed that for some reason. So I don't particularly care for that, but basic fantasy is great.
Chris Gonnerman, we talked about having him on the show for like 2 years. I haven't mentioned his name probably in a couple of years, but there's a while back there because Heathen Dog covered basic fantasy for a little bit. And then I had a little, when that Clownfish TV thing happened, I had a little back and forth with him. He seems like a nice guy. We just never had him on the show. And we're so tired of OSR stuff right now or anything D&D related. We just don't want to cover it. Not that we think it's bad. Oh my God, I said we don't want to cover it. Everybody's going to be like, you hate OSR. No, we're bored of Dungeons and Dragons, okay? We're bored of all the clones of Dungeons and Dragons. That's all it is. Great games. We love them. You get the idea. So we're not interested at this point, but one day I would like to talk to him.
Yeah, I have Iron Falcon. Iron Falcon is a really great. I almost like Iron Falcon more than Basic Fantasy as far as like an OD&D clone. It's pretty good. But I'm with you. That's why I was doing the One Ring deep dives on my channel as of late, because I'm kind of tired of D20s for a little bit here. I want something a little different, and so I have the One Ring. I think it's a great game, so I was like, I'm going to cover that game. Now my videos have not been doing as well for those, but I don't care because.
Well, you're going to get some view probably this week. I forgot you were doing those, and I should have remembered because I knew you were. I do want to look at those because we're not covering the One Ring this year, even though we're doing Free League stuff right now. But I'm kind of sticking true to the Year Zero Engine games, and that's not one. But I haven't even read through my. I was a Kickstarter backer, and I still haven't read through the book yet. So I'm definitely going to watch your videos on that.
Yeah, it says One Ring is. The One Ring is the prettiest book on my shelf, that's for sure. I think it's a good game, and more people should check it out and try it, especially if you're a dirty campaigner like Max. So
yeah.
Well, and the thing is you don't have to do Middle Earth. You can just use the rules set.
Sure.
That's
it'd
one
be
of the things. Sorry.
It'd be great. It'd be great for a low fantasy. I mean, a low magic adventure game. Like, yeah, strip out all the Tolkien stuff, and it's great.
I actually want to use Adventures of Middle Earth for 5e like that. I want to like use the rules for the most part because it's like low fantasy 5e and it's a lot more deadly and stuff like that. But just strip out the 5e or the Lord of the Rings like setting and just like replace it with my own kind of like low fantasy setting. I think it would work pretty well.
I mean, I've been using, just to like get a handle on the rules, I've been using Strider mode to figure out the One Ring as well, because I haven't had a chance to really run a group through it fully yet. It's not D&D. It's one of those situations where like it's not D&D, and so it's hard to get people interested in even your own play group to want to do it. Unfortunately,
that is something that I hear this all the time. It comes up on my shows a lot too, and it's just absolutely boggled my mind. I have never been in an environment. I mean, I've been around people that have said that. Oh, we only play D&D, and then a couple months later, I've got them playing Earth Dawn. But my groups have always wanted to play other games. Sometimes to the point where it's like, no, dude, I'm still running this campaign. Yeah, but we really want to try this other one out. Luckily, it didn't happen to me. But you get what I'm saying. Like I've never been around people until very recently. Like, no, this is all I play. This is all I do. That's so weird. Why?
My group isn't as bad in where it's not D&D. It's just like they'll play Traveler, they'll play my games that I make, they'll play Call of Cthulhu, they'll play a lot of different games. West End games, Star Wars D6. Like our little group, like in our BX game, some nights when someone's not there, we'll play something else. And so when I brought up the One Ring, they're just sort of like, eh. And I'm like, really? You guys don't want to play that? Okay, we'll play something else. We'll play Traveler. We'll do a one shot in Traveler. We'll do a one shot in Call of Cthulhu or something like that. But I don't know. They just don't seem interested in my in-person group, unfortunately. So,
Per says, why not use Conan's Hyboria for low fantasy? Well, I love Conan and I love all these settings, but when I run stuff, I generally prefer my own stuff. I just steal liberally from cool settings and then I make up my own settings. So I rarely run stuff in established settings. Even when I like run D&D, like it might start off as Forgotten Realms technically because I start off with a module or something. But then once the module is complete, it just veers off into my own like nonsense. So
I like playing my own stuff too. Although with something like if I'm playing the One Ring, obviously I'm gonna use Middle Earth, or if I'm playing Coriolis, I'm gonna use the setting in the book in Coriolis if I'm gonna run Coriolis.
Hey, funny, we start Coriolis this week.
I'm gonna have to watch it because I have that book on my shelf, and I was gonna do a deep dive into that one, but I was like, yeah, I'm gonna do the One Ring first because it's a little more like Coriolis is a gorgeous book and it seems like a really cool setting, but
yeah, my issue with Coriolis, and it's not an issue at all, it's a personal issue with me, not with the game, is I can't do the Arabic stuff. So the way I envision Coriolis is it's like Firefly, but just change Chinese to Arabic. And so I lived in Kuwait for a year, and I still don't feel that I could do the Arabian Nights style version of it properly. So I would personally strip that out, not because I think it's bad, not because I think it's wrong, but because I would eventually just strip it out accidentally. You know what I'm saying? Like, so I would just go and like, look, we're going to play this system. We're going to use the words that are in here. Some of them are Arabic, but long story short, I'm not going to worry about the Arabic themes because I would forget about them anyway. But other than that, I do like it.
If I wanted an Arabic setting, I would just step outside.
Okay.
Pretty good. I mean, get me. Oh, I don't know. Europe, yeah, it's Europe.
I mean, in Germany, it's the Turks, but not the Arabs. But yeah,
it's Europe. I'm gonna have to watch your Coriolis videos when you guys start doing those because
crap. That means I have to put more effort into them.
Well, because I want to learn how to run it. I want to run. I would love to run that game for someone because for me, it's like I love space stuff. Like obviously, I love Traveler. I love West End games, Star Wars D6. So
that's my favorite one to this day.
Well, West End games.
Yeah.
Or It's good. The benefit of West End games, like one night, not all of our group could be there for our in-person game. So I had West End game Star Wars G6, and the brilliant thing is like everyone's so familiar with Star Wars that you can just be like, I can run a seat of the pants Star Wars adventure for you guys right here, right now. You know, we can just make it up as we go along because we're all so familiar with Star Wars. It's easy to just make up an adventure on the spot, and everyone has a good time. So
yeah,
I think that's the big benefit of that.
Crafty,
I admit,
sorry.
Oh, good. No, go ahead.
To respond to Crafty, I will not. I'm not going to completely ignore the setting in the deep dive because I'm literally reading the book.
Yeah,
and then talking about what's in it. So I don't think I can do that. That'd be funny though. But yeah, in my game, I would ignore it.
I was gonna say I do admit that Star Wars is one of the few settings that I do like running like an established setting, but that's because the Star Wars setting is so fast and loose. You can still like shoehorn in like 90% of your own stuff, and as long as you mention Jedi and like maybe you have them visit Tatooine at some point, and like the Sith and Stormtroopers and stuff, it's still Star Wars. So,
I mean, you could run. This is how I intend to run and do run West End game Star Wars T6, is I only adhere to the original trilogy because I feel like that's in the spirit of the books.
Yes.
So like the planets that are in the movie, those are in my games. But beyond that, like I'm gonna make up planets. I'm gonna make up because there's, I think it's second edition or maybe it was still within the first edition days for that game. But they had like a traveler style planet generator because obviously there was no expanded universe really yet. There were
expanded books for the game, but you did have to buy them. I think I have one of them.
But they gave you tools to build your own like planets and star systems and stuff like that are obviously not canon. They're canon in your game, I guess. But to me, it goes back to a time when the Force was mysterious and the original trilogy was enthralling, and just as much as I know some people love, especially the younger generations, love the prequels. And we're not going to speak of the new trilogy, but that I feel like that's just the best way to go. And it's so, like I said, it's so easy. Star Wars. It's like the easiest setting to just. It's so culturally like you've absorbed it through osmosis that if you want to run a game in that, it's easy to just be like, you're on this planet. There's an Imperial base here. What do you guys do? And you go from there. It's easy.
The D6 system captures the original trilogy. I would actually say that the prequels are better done by a D20 system, the third edition or whatever you want to call it, but I wouldn't do the prequels either. But the original trilogy, Star Wars, Empire, and Return of the Jedi, were absolutely captured wonderfully by that D6 system. And to this day, I don't even know how, because usually I'm like, well, this system's better than that one. They're pretty good. This one does better here. This one does better there. No, when I'm playing the West End Games version, I actually feel like it is the original trilogy. There's just something weird about that, but yeah.
It might be a bit of nostalgia. I don't know. But sorry, go ahead, Big.
Star Wars is also nice because there's always those players that's like, oh, I don't want to do sci-fi. I like fantasy. Well, Star Wars is basically space fantasy, so it's like one of the easiest like sci-fi settings to get like those kinds of people still interested in. Because even if they don't want to engage with like the more hard sci-fi like aspects, like the blasters and the spaceships and the robots and stuff, they can just be like some Luddite Jedi or something, so.
Shane says, I guess that planet stuff was in the Planet's Guide and Scout's Galaxy Guide.
Yeah.
So
the Planet's Guide to Guns and no.
Yeah. Oh wait, this one. WEG is best played. Best to play the original trilogy, Solo, Rogue One, and or Mandalorian books of Boba Fett.
Okay.
I didn't enjoy Book of Boba Fett, but I could see Rogue One. Rogue One would be like a fun, little adventure of stealing the Death Star plans, because it would be like that tactical, really war movie style thing, which I think those rules, because the Force rules are so simple in the D6 system, because at the time, like, Obi-Wan was the only Jedi and he was killed, and then Yoda, and then he was gone, and then it's just Luke, and then Luke's power seems so toned down compared to other iterations of Jedi that we see in later renditions of it. There's like one Force jump in The Empire Strikes Back out of the carbon freezer thing, and you're like, oh, he can jump really high. And then later they're just like Marioing all over the place, and it's obnoxious.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to ban you from my chat, Eric C. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I despise the WEC system. So a friend and I did Savage Worlds conversion for Star Wars. The Savage Worlds is cool too, but I think the WEC system is pretty great. I did a whole deep dive on that game too. So I don't even know what else to talk about. We covered a lot of stuff today.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting. I run this show kind of like how I run my games, by the seat of my pants. So
Yeah.
Wait, what is that? I like Coriolis setting. Would probably want to.
More sci-fi fantasy to it.
There is magic now. It's limited, but there is magic in Coriolis. But it's one of those things that's just popping up. It's an anomaly. Like, whoa, what's going on here? So I'll talk about that. By the way, the Mercy of the Icons is a 3-volume set. I have it, and I will tell you that 5/6 of it is downright amazing. It's not written in a railroady format. It's written in more of a these things will happen at a certain time format. No. Oh, Eric, see, I got you on that one. First edition.
Yeah, I was about to say.
I hate the wild die version also. Yeah, what he's putting on the screen there's no wild die in that nonsense.
Yeah, I was about to say, wasn't Wild Die second edition?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, I think it was first edition revised also, but I could be wrong. But yeah, the main first edition. But now I forgot what I was saying about Coriolis. Whatever. Oh,
Magic.
no, the Mercy of the Icons. It's great. Unfortunately, the ending of it is so god awful. And I say that because it completely changes the landscape of the setting that it's like you're starting over. And I don't mind things that have an ending that are meaningful, but this changes, like the core book is, we'll just say, is partially wrong by the time that campaign setting is over. And that's annoying. Mm-hmm. But other than that, I highly suggest it.
Have Max tell us the best edition of every FASA RPG. He has most of it on his shelves.
See, well, I unfortunately don't have the Star Trek one anymore because I gave that away for a hardcover Shadowrun book back in around 1991, right before second edition came out. So I lost on that deal. I also didn't have the Doctor Who one. But with that said, which edition? Well, BattleTech for me, the best one. Well, I'm a 3025 purist when it comes to BattleTech, so that's all I care about. When it comes to Mech Warrior game, I think third edition has the best character generation, but second edition is the best to play. I don't even do Time of Trouble or Time of War, whatever that nonsense that they've got now is, and I don't follow it anymore with regard to that. What else came out? Oh, Earth Dawn, first edition with second edition skills, or fourth edition with the first edition success chart for combat. What else is a FASA game? Renegade Legion, unfortunately, I only played on the computer. I didn't play that for real. Crimson Sky, also only played that on the computer. Didn't play that for real. Am I missing a game?
I don't know.
I'm not. The only FASA game I own is Mech Warrior Second Edition. That's the only one I have. So
Mech Warrior Second Edition, the one with the vulture on the cover. Yeah. That one. I mean, again, people always play Hot Shots, and I don't like the. It's not Karma die. What's it? The hell's it called? What's that extra die that you get in there? But yeah,
I've only skimmed it. I've never ran it.
Shadowrun. I'm a first and second edition Shadowrun player. I think third edition made physical add-ups too prevalent. I think physical add-ups got really goofy in third edition. I know a lot of people like that. I do not. I think the first edition, second edition are both great. If you want a little bit cleaner rules, you play second edition. If you want a little bit more quirkiness, you play first edition, but they generally play the same. So, and I fourth through sixth edition can F itself off a bridge with Dan.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I was about to say, I only play Earth Dawn, but with cybernetics and guns. So...
You know, a lot of people like to do that. Like, oh, Earth Dawn and Shadowrun are intertwined. I know technically they are, but it's not something you're going to deal with. Earth Dawn has a better system. No. Earth Dawn's system is so much better than Shadowrun's. And don't get me wrong, I like Shadowrun. I like Cyberpunk and I like Shadowrun. No, No, he knows he's getting under my skin. We got a back and forth. By the way, I'll be on his show on Thursday. Is it Thursday night? Talking with Blaine Lee Pardoe, who's one of the writers for BattleTech novels, and Brent Evans, they're Game with ADHD. So if you guys have not subscribed to Game with ADHD, he actually has a really good channel with his interviews and so forth. So looking forward to that. But yeah, there you go. I mean, that's all I can think of off the top of my head when it comes to the FASA games. I used to be a big fan of FASA before it fell under. This new FASA has a couple of good people that work there, but also has, unfortunately, some people that I wouldn't piss on to put out a fire. I'd piss next to them just to make them see what they're missing out on.
Is this I mean, because FASA is there, are they still, it's because Catalyst
well, a lot of those old IPs were gone, but so FASA Corporation is the old one. FASA Games is the new one. Okay. So yeah,
because I know Catalyst Games has like BattleTech and Mech Warrior and stuff
unfortunately Catalyst Games does have BattleTech and they're the same weirdos that said we can't put the Rommel tank out there anymore, even though it's core to BattleTech. It's been around since the beginning of BattleTech. The Rommel patent tank were two tanks, one has AC-20, the other has AC-10, and they're kind of the one side or the other side. Oh, can't do that anymore because it has the Rommel name in it, and you know what that refers to. Oh, bad. Whatever. Yeah,
on the Gilded server, BattleTech's taken over. Everyone's talking about it in the Wargame channel. So
I'm not.
Yeah.
But
it's unfortunate because y'all giving Cuckless Games money, but I get it. I mean, I understand BattleTech was a good game, so.
I'm the last holdout. I'm refusing to get into BattleTech and Wargames. Screw you all.
I play Bolt Action. That's my war game.
Oh yeah, we are gonna play Bolt Action on Tabletop Simulator at some point.
Yeah. Be Nazis and Americans,
Yeah. Also, Crafty, while you guys are playing Cyberpunk and you're waiting for the hacker to fucking finally finish so you guys can do something, I'm over in Shadowrun shooting orcs in the face and doing all this cool shit. So,
You actually know you have that backward. I was actually going to say that. You have that backward. Cyberpunk handles the Decker, or the Netrunner in that case, much better than Shadowrun handles the Decker. The Decker is basically like, the party's over here. Okay, what's the Decker doing? You guys go smoke for 30 minutes. The Netrunner actually has it built in. I think it's like every other round, if I remember correctly. So you get like 2 actions to 1 or some nonsense. I forget exactly what it is. I haven't played in a long time. But the Netrunner is built into the Netrunner's built into Cyberpunk better than the Decker's built into Shadowrun. But I do like both games.
I always heard that the 2021 was pretty slow, but Shadowrun's also pretty slow. I think they fixed it in Red some, but yeah.
Cyberpunk Red supposedly fixed Netrunners where they're not as cumbersome. And
maybe it's because I started with Shadowrun, but I actually liked them in Cyberpunk. But it could be because I started with Shadowrun. We're like, we have a Decker in the party. Oh crap. All right, well, so when do I take my 2-hour break?
Crafty, if I want to play Bright, I either play the Modern Adventurer's Guide to Guns and Gear for 5th edition, or I play Modern Necessities for Old School Essentials, both available on DriveThruRPG.
And
Big Geek Emporium, and Black Lodge Gaming, I think. And, some other stuff. And Lulu. Oh, not Lulu. Yeah, Lulu, and on Itch.
See, they're talking about the Rommel tank. That's sad. That's been part of why I haven't gotten into it. But I also know that if I start buying more little plastic army men, or it's a completely different game, that my wife.
I've been playing BattleTech since it was Battle Droids in the early '80s. I think '84 is when it came out. I have to this day, until Gaming with ADHD sends me 4 more that he's making for me. Really awesome. Appreciate that, dude. I have a total of 8 battle mechs. Well, and the cardboard ones that came with the original. I never went out. I was too poor, so I didn't do it. We proxied the hell. We would use things like, okay, let me rip up this piece of paper here. I'm going to put an arrow on it and forward. That's the mech. Like, I've never felt the need to buy a ton of mechs. I know a lot of people pride themselves on their mechs, but I never felt that need. My issue is, like I said, the people getting into the game now, they're all going to be clan warriors. Cuckless is also taken out. So the Inner Sphere, for example, that's the galaxy, we'll just call it for BattleTech, had 5 great houses that were total stereotypes. It was amazing. You had House Davion, which is like France, England, and Australia kind of thing, right? And Americans, but it wasn't America. It was more for France, England. It was great. And they did all the Western stuff. Then you had House Kurita, which is Bushido, Japan. Like this is like World War II style Bushido Japan. Make sure you bow at exactly 37 centimeters away because you outrank that guy who's gonna be bowing at 38 centimeters. You know, like they get into all this weird stereotype stuff. There's a language called Swedenese. I mean, it's half Swedish, half Japanese. Like, yeah, like, dude, it's this awesome stereotype. Then you've got then you have the Polish Germans. You know, you got the whole fist and everything going on for like the Polish resistance. That is the economic powerhouse, completely straight blonde-haired, steel blue-eyed type people. Then you have the Balkans, which is basically Yugoslavia down there, all fighting each other, acting chaos until somebody fights them. And then you have the one that I play, which is House Liao, which is Sino-Soviet, which has all the stereotypes that you could think of for the Soviet Union, and then converted when Russia fell and China kind of gained in the real world. Like the Chinese influence, they've stripped most of that because that stereotyping.
That sounds like it takes some of the soul out of the setting out.
Absolutely did. Even though it's comical. Look, anybody who sits back and says, okay, does this make sense that literally every Chinese person went to this entire sector of space? No, but you're right. It gave the game soul. And then the clans, when they were first introduced, were basically like Native American totems and with some other kind of Highlander-esque nonsense in the background. And they've just stripped it down where every faction has maybe a hint of that left, but that's it. It's ridiculous because it's all racist and bad, and we don't want to do that. Shut up.
Yeah.
That's why I play bolt action and I just have little swastikas on my Germans. So
not little eagles or little red dots or whatever you're allowed to use now.
No, bolt action is base. They're just like
nice.
Yeah, here's some decals and there's swastikas in here,
Yeah, it's history.
It's like, it's history. That was like on Twitter. There was someone was in a game shop and they had like dice for wargaming, and they were bolt action dice. Okay. And some of the dice had swastikas on them. Some of them had like Soviet hammer and sickle. Some of them had,
which is just as bad if you want to be honest about it.
Yeah, but they had all of that on there, and they had like American ones. They had like Italian. They had Japan, because it's all it's World War II. So they had like all the stuff from World War II for the dice for your armies that you're using. And like the person was like, I don't think they knew they were for bolt action, so they were just thinking that these are just like Nazi dice. It's like, no, it's for it's for a historical World War II war game. Like,
oh my God, people,
take some deep breaths. It's gonna be okay,
right?
So you used to be able to buy this knockoff Lego, and I bought a bunch of it. So I have like this Lego Nazi army, and also like Lego Allied army. But one of them,
I almost lost it. That almost went out.
Well, one of the things I bought is also a Lego Tiger tank.
That's awesome.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, like, and it's completely compatible with like regular Lego. Like the figurines like actually look like actual Lego, but they just have like Nazi uniforms, and one has like a monocle and a scar over his eye and shit, like all this stuff. It's fucking awesome. It's like this Chinese stuff.
When you said Lego Nazis, the only thing I could think of is everything's good now. Everything is cool when you
yeah. Well, yeah, that stuff is like they had to stop making it. It was like some Chinese knockoff stuff, and I guess they got in trouble. But but it was awesome. And yeah, like it was a full-on Tiger tank over here.
That's cool. Yeah, I play bolt action because I think wargaming is cool, but I'm not really interested in fantasy or sci-fi or anything like that, or fantasy sci-fi. For me, like that's what role-playing games are for, to like delve into that stuff. And so for me, when it comes to wargaming, I don't know, for some reason I'm just really drawn to historical stuff. So I picked bolt action because I've always been fascinated with World War II since I was a kid. So
but the reason I did BattleTech was because, well, first I was introduced to it young. I mean, that's, but
giant stumpy robots when you're young,
Absolutely. And I was playing Robotech as an RPG. Actually, I think I played BattleTech I don't know. I wasn't allowed to do D&D. I did D&D a couple times. Wasn't allowed to do that because of Satanic Panic, but I was allowed to play TMNT, Robotech, BattleTech, because they weren't D&D, right? But I started reading the novels, but every time I tried another war game, and I know some people are going to laugh at me out there, but they were too complicated for me. I didn't enjoy it. BattleTech had this great balance between simplicity and meaningful rules. Now, they've started to overcomplicate it with rules over the years, but basic second edition, if you want to call it that, the BattleTech what you'd find in what we call the BattleTech companions before the Time of War stuff were just, I don't know how to say it. The rules were meaningful but simplistic enough. Like you had to think, you had to play tactically, but you didn't have to worry about every little nonsense. And it was more about heat management and things like that. So I love that balance. I've tried to play some other war games over time, and I just find that the nuance of them is just, for me, it was always just like, this is boring. Like,
I like bolt action. It has like some specialty dice, which is, I know, kind of annoys some people. Generally, it annoys
I like
me.
'em.
But you have like order dice, so the way turns and initiative is, I guess, kind of done is you draw from a cup, and if it's your dice, then you can put the order dice next to a squad, and it's a fun skirmish game. But I don't find it, at first it was a little complicated, but once I figured it out, it was easy to play. And I got my dad playing it, and he came out here to visit, and we were on my kitchen table, and my dad was he wanted to be the Germans, so he was the Germans, I was the Americans, and he had a lot of fun. He's like, oh, this is like chess, but there's more complexity to it. There's more like, whatever. And he had a really good time. He was even like, because he's retiring soon and he's moving up here to Idaho. And he's like, I could assemble minis and paint them in my spare time. He's like never been into this stuff.
And you're like, yeah, Dad.
He's like never been into any of this stuff ever. So yeah, he's like, I'm like, yes, I'll have someone to play bolt action with out here.
That's awesome. I keep moving farther and farther away from people that I can play games with.
Eventually, you'll be like me and only get to play online.
Well, you just got to move to Idaho, Vic. So
Yeah, that's true. I'll live in your shed or something.
Throngar, I was going to a Lutheran school at the time, so I was in the middle of the Satanic Panic, and the Lutheran Synod that I belonged to was very conservative.
I dealt with the remnants of Satanic Panic. I went to a very evangelical church growing up, so it wasn't just that. There was lots of stuff I wasn't allowed to partake of, although I still did when parents were not looking.
Right.
But,
and that was the main thing that we used to talk about like a couple years ago with the woke panic versus the old Satanic Panic. The woke panic is in your game at your table. That's the problem. Satanic Panic, you just didn't talk about it. You just, play with your friends when nobody's. It was like sneaking a cigarette or something. You just didn't tell anybody and hope that you got some mouthwash before you got home.
Yeah, the woke panic is like from the inside.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, we're getting towards the 2-hour mark here. Usually, that's what I want to try and go for. For you guys, talk about, I guess, what you guys have coming up. We'll start with Max because he's the guest here.
Well, first things first, I want to thank John, Basic Expert, for inviting me on. I really do appreciate that. It's don't get a lot of opportunity to come here because normally I have to be in bed right now because I work in the morning, but I have this week off. So thank you very much for having me on here. No Friday, I don't know. Victor lied to me about his birthday, so
I didn't lie. You misunderstood.
No, you lied. It's my time to talk.
Yeah.
Lied to me about his birthday. We're going with that story. So I don't know what we're going to talk about on the Friday chill stream, but I got plenty of time to figure that out, or whatever it's called, rando stream now. It's at 6 p.m. on Friday. And on Sunday, 1 p.m. Central Standard Time, I will be introducing everybody to Coriolis, the Third Horizon by Free League Publishing. And Heathen Dog is going to talk about Lone Star. And I'm going to give him all the stupid Lone Star jokes from Spaceballs when it comes to, yes, that's Coriolis book. It's a fantastic book, by the way. Anyway, he's going to be covering the Rifts, Rifts World Book 13 Lone Star. So that's what we've got going on Friday and Sunday.
Awesome. Yeah, go check out their channel. I mean, people who subscribe to me are probably subscribed to your channel, but if you're not for some reason, go check out
it's right there in the name.
Yep.
Point there.
I can't point. You're tagged in the video description below, so people can click on your name and go right to your channel. So yeah. Vic, what about you?
Well, speaking of liars, I invited you to the show, Max, not John. But whatever.
Oh,
you can thank
what? I do stand corrected on that one.
But
I
was like, I guess he can come.
Yeah. Fuck.
Well, since you already invited him, damn it.
But no, tomorrow I'll have to see what Crossface wants to do. But we'll probably do one shots with Crossface on Tuesday. Other than that, well, we'll see if Max wants to have me on Friday, but I'll probably jump on the chill stream. Maybe I'll pretend it's my birthday. We'll see.
There you go.
But and then Sundays I have my own stream, the Dutch Oven, where I just hang out with some other nerds and we just talk about random nerd shit. Usually like movies and comics and anime and like whatever we feel like. And yeah, that's about it. Check out my games if you're interested in like firearms and like mixing it with fantasy and stuff like that. And yeah, that's it, Billy. Don't have much going on.
Vic just invited, didn't ask TV disc. Nah,
I did
that's
that.
fine.
I did ask.
He did ask, and Max is always welcome here.
Yeah,
me and him have like the opposite problem. Like I would love to tune in or be on Chill Stream more often, but I'm like eating dinner and putting my child to bed at that time. So
Like
by the
real
time
life is more important than my stream. What is wrong with you?
yeah.
Hey, the same could be said with you.
Damn, you're right. And same thing with you. I mean, it's always open to you. Obviously, I try to keep it to 4 people max. Last week was a little weird, but yeah, absolutely. If there's ever a time you want to be on, I will make sure there's a spot for you.
Yeah. But by the time I'm like settled and the kid's asleep and like dinner's done and everything, I'm logging in like last 15 minutes of your stream and I'm like, cool. You
should just jump into the after stream, because then we were usually talking for like another 4 hours.
and then getting drunk apparently out here too.
Yes. Very.
For me, I got a Kickstarter coming up here. Mojito is coming out. If I need help, so if anyone knows of a good US side printer, I'd prefer to print the book in the US, but so far the only company that's given me the time of day has been a Lithuanian company. And if I go with them, which they've given me a very good and competitive price on like a nice offset printing of the book, but I have to get an import. I have to find a broker of some sort to import the books from the EU into the United States. So
let's
if you
talk after this.
Okay. Yeah. If someone out there, or I guess Max knows someone too, if you know someone that can help with that, I will need that if I go with a Lithuanian printer, which is a really good printer. I know it's in Lithuania, but Greg from Chronicles of Iris has used them, and other bigger name publishers have used them as well.
Is it the same one that Free League uses?
They might use them as well. I'm not positive. Free League might use a printer in Estonia, actually.
Oh, yeah, I think you're right.
Which I did reach out to that same printer, and they sort of got back to me, and then they never talked to me again. So I don't know.
Doesn't Vaggy use like a European printer, or am I misremembering?
He uses one in the UK, I believe.
Yeah.
And James from Neckbeardy has given someone in Ireland where he's at. So it seems like the only Europeans want to talk to me.
Yeah, your co-host.
The Americans are like, we'll talk to that brown guy.
Yeah.
But if you know someone, let me know. And but yeah, it should be coming soon. You can sign up on the page. I made a little trailer on my channel, so check that out. It's Aztec setting, your familiar white box rules, but I do change some things up. It's not just a straight up white box clone. There's some creative twists to the game. But yeah, so keep an eye out for that. Yeah, I want to thank you, Max, for coming on. I appreciate it again. Anytime you're free, you're more than welcome to come on. And as always, thank you to Vic for being here, so that when there isn't another guest, I'm not awkwardly talking to myself or to chat.
Yeah, you're just awkwardly talking to me.
Well, it's easier when it's that way.
Yeah. I don't know. I know. I hate being by myself on stream too.
Because I've tried helping. I know California's not exactly the United States, but I'm definitely not in Europe. I fled that place for reasons. But yeah, thank you guys for coming on. Thank you, chat. You guys, thank you again for the super chat for you guys out there that did do that. We appreciate that. Helps pay for StreamYard. And check out these guys' channels. Vic needs to get monetized, so get him. We got a last minute super chat for just $10.
Chat loves doing that, by the way.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Nice. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You didn't say anything, just $10. Thank you. But yeah, check out these guys' channels, subscribe their stuff, and I'm looking forward to the Coriolis videos. So streams. So with that, we'll end that here. tune in next week. I don't know what we're going to talk about or who will be on, but it will probably be interesting. So check it out.
Yeah.
We'll talk to you guys later.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.